Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Silent Podcast, where everything but silent. I'm host Isaiah, and we're here with a very special podcast with Phillip from Deal or No Deal Island as a very special guest. Phillip, how are you doing today?
I've been better, but we're making it happen. We're making it happen. We are blessed and ready to talk about the episode.
Awesome. Very, very happy to have you here. We got a whole lot of stuff to chat about with this and just everything that we've seen so far. So very happy to have you here. We also have Cheyenne. Once again, Cheyenne, how are you doing today?
I'm doing much better now. I'm so excited to talk about Dog D with Phillip. You've been such a positive force in this game that I'm so excited to have you on. The episode, am I excited? No, but I'm excited to talk about it.
Right, let's talk about it.
And then Julia's also back with us. Julia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I woke up at 7 a.m. to watch this week's episode and last week's episode since I missed it. What a whirlwind. I got a little bit of whiplash, but Phillip, really excited to have you here. If you listened to our earlier episodes, I think a lot of us had you as a winner pick. So want to hear more about your journey and last night's episode.
Amazing.
All right. So we actually have one more co-host. She could not be here tonight, but she did ask me to ask you something very specific. So we're going to get into that before we even get into this episode, Phillip. So Katie, she did want to know, guys, can you please ask him, why is integrity so important to everyone this season? Phillip, this is a big word this season, integrity. We're seeing it every episode. So yes. Break it down for us. What's going on?
So I think that in going into a game like this, what we were told upon entrance is that it is, in only it being season 2, we were told that yes, Big Brother exists, Survivor exists, but this is different. How it was phrased to us was to get as much money in there as possible, and eliminations would kind of happen along the way. As we're watching the show, trust me, when you're like, I wish they were more cutthroat. Me too. I'm saying the same thing as I'm watching it. But again, how it was initially phrased to us and how we went into the game versus how it's actually playing out. And I think that as soon as you bring in these big celebrity game players per se, I can only explain it like this. In no other job, occupation ever, would you take someone that has been working in a job for 10 years, 15 years, and at this point on this episode, we've been there for 9 days, and be like, why aren't they on the same level? And I'm like, well, it's been 9 days. So we're trying our best here, but it's the idea of we're not used to hearing a challenge, hearing the rules, and then we're just okay, how do we do it well? Whereas Parvati, David, Will are okay, what rules are they not saying out loud? What are the loopholes? We're not thinking like that yet. We're just trying to understand what's happening right now. And if you really think about it like that, you're technically you guys are holding your own, considering a week and a half ago, you didn't know who each other was.
I'm really curious, Phillip, what is your history with reality television? Are you a big reality TV fanatic? Did you recognize anybody coming in? And I guess this is what they told you what the game was, but I guess, did you have a strategy coming in?
So I am huge into reality TV, but not necessarily for the reason that other people are. I like the competitive stuff, but to be honest, I come at it from a more academic level. I love reality TV because I love sociology and psychology. And if you really think about two extremes, what would Luke and Hazel have in common if they had to work together? That to me is interesting. Where I'm okay, so you're from the Midwest, you're from this area. And so in seeing things like Housewives or Drag Race or whatever else, we're although they have one thing in common, they each have their own branch and their own story. I love the human element, the compassion of it, which really does kind of go into my strategy. Contrary to what I look like, I am not athletic in the least, can't swim, never played a sport growing up, never did any of that stuff. But I can lift weights up and put them back down. And so for me, I was okay, I know that I'm going to have a target on my back unless your thing, whether it comes to teaching middle school, running a fitness class, being a personal trainer. I know what I do well, and that's connecting with other people and vulnerability. So I was like, okay, cool. If you can bring that positivity, if you can bring that energy to every individual interaction you have, no one will want to take you out immediately because we're like, I like the energy and the vibe.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about this episode a little bit. Or wait, Sean, you got something?
If I could, yeah, I just think it's so interesting that last week I said something very similar to our young Philip guest here, where I said, people do talk about integrity in the early seasons of TV shows. And well, what can I say? There's a reason why your word means things when you have just met people. And Parvati is like, if it's been literally a week since you even learned she's the Black Widow, I mean, can you imagine? That is kind of crazy. Crazy
knew
circumstances.
of her work. I knew the resume.
Okay.
But if you really think about who they have on the show, Letty is a former Miss Indiana. I taught middle school for 12 years. So like all of us have these things where like our job, our occupation, our livelihood depends on us being role models and good people. So I know it's annoying as an audience, but that's what we do outside of the show. And so in turn, on the island, when I was brought onto the show, they were like, you're going to be one of the moral compasses of the island. And knowing that like I have kids and parents and stuff watching the show, and I'm still pretty proud of all the things that have happened on the show because they've been genuine and realistic. Have they all been beautiful and perfect? Absolutely not. But I feel like in knowing me, you're like, yeah, that tracks. All of that works.
No, I think it's a really good point. Since you've been a middle school teacher for 12 years, like you have your current kids, former kids watching you, they know who you are and you want to make them proud. I'm really curious as like, because you're a teacher, how did you hear about Deal or No Deal and what made you want to go?
So I did the whole teacher thing. I did the millennial thing. I had 2 master's degrees by 22. I was the New Jersey 2020 teacher who makes magic. Out of my 500 teacher district, I was the only content area Black teacher, kindergarten through 12. It was just me. So I'm used to working on my own. I'm used to being almost kind of like a spectacle, if you will. And I did all the things, won all the awards. And then I was like, what now? And they were like, chill till retirement. And I was like, 30 years? You want me to stay in this room for 30 years? So I just left the classroom about 2 years ago to move out to Austin and be a full-time trainer. So I did not think I would find a job that afforded me this kind of compassion and vulnerability and empathy. But like all of my clients know who I am. I know who they are. I know if they've had a good day, a bad day. And that's why my classes are as well attended as they are, of course.
I also just wanted to throw this on top of it because I don't know what the social media reaction has been with you already, but I'm just letting you know, like based off of like true fans of like this competitive reality television space, you're awesome. By the way, like you're giving us the entertainment, giving us some of the game, the strategy, like you're doing great. So I don't know if it's been negative or positive, but people are still watching. I'm just like, you've been a great character this season. So
it's been so good and so bad at the same time. But thank you so much.
So I did want to ask, because there's a lot to talk about with previous weeks as well as sort of going into this week. Coming into this episode, you guys are fresh off of the Dr. Will, boot and everything. And I just kind of wanted to see, first of all, we did see that you knew who Parvati was. Did you know who Will was? Is the first question.
I did.
And how did Will leaving actually affect your game? Because you do see like you and Letty kind of lock something in with Will, yet obviously Will goes in the fashion that he does. How did that affect your game?
I have an unpopular opinion, hot take. When the cameras went down, Dr. Will was a very different person. I will say this. I literally will swear to you in front of a court of law, he is one of the coolest, greatest people I have ever met. I think that his whole MO, if you know him at all, is hate him and then learn to love him. And I think that even as a viewer, you guys hated him episode 1. And as he went home, you were like, oh, like it just he brings a certain bravado and a certain energy. And where I really learned about Dr. Will was, I want to say Dixon had a sunburn. And if it was anything health related or skin related, he snapped right in there. He told medic. They tried to give him some like cream or whatever else. And he was like, nope, not that. I need X, Y, and Z. And they were like, I don't know if we have that, sir. And he was like, go find it. When Letty jumped for the ring, she had a small concussion. He closed the blinds, took care of her for that night. Like, he's good. And that's when the real like position like swung in there. And he was like, okay, I got this. So him leaving was a big hit to the energy. I don't know if we could fully trust him as much as we wanted to. And I feel like even you guys saw that as viewers where you're like, I think they're working with him, but I don't really know, because all Letty and I have for sure is each other. But we knew that Dr. Will was willing to help us. And we knew that also, I want to throw this out there. He was going to throw the next excursion. We did not know what the excursion was at the time. And then halfway through it, he was like, wait, I don't have to, because CK will throw it on her own. And then he never did. So as much as we want to like hate on him, he never actually did what he wanted to do, I promise.
I'm letting you know right now, we're huge Dr. Will fans over here. You know what I'm saying?
Not we.
Me, Katie. I think just everybody but Cheyenne. All right, so we like Will. So go ahead, Cheyenne.
It's so funny that you said that, because I wanted to start the episode with, we're coming off on David ending Dr. Will's reality TV career. Boom, 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 boom. He's out of there.
He gave an amazing speech that NBC could not use all of, which, can we all agree that these episodes need to be an hour and a half? Number one, these episodes need to be longer because there's so much that you guys are not seeing. But he gave an amazing speech where he was like, he's been a reality TV producer. He's been on Big Brother more than one. He's like, I've been through a lot of shows. And this group of people is some of the most interesting people that he's ever worked with. And he said, like, kudos to you. I came in here to put on a show, but I didn't need to once I met you all. And it was a really beautiful moment that they had to slice, I think, also to kind of keep up the Dr. Will energy. But like, I promise you, he's an amazing, amazing guy. MG, she's from a small town, a real small town. And she was a firefighter in that town. And she always wanted to leave and see somewhere bigger than that. She believed that there was somewhere bigger than that. And he moved her out to LA, and she works for him now. And so like, every promise he made on the island, he kept.
That is, and in carrying on about what Dr. Will has done from the words of others, Seychelle does say in her after episode with Boston Rob that Dr. Will was really helpful in skincare and that she really enjoyed talking to him. And then in this very episode, Letty is sad that he's gone. I put a lot of question marks behind that note, but apparently she saw him as a number.
Yeah, I think he definitely would have worked with us because he does not believe that reality stars are untouchable. And I think he kind of got the idea that Parvati believed that she was untouchable, and he hates that. And I think him and her just went for it each and every day, and we all just kind of stood back and watched, and we like helped where we could, but overall we were super entertained.
And you listen, speaking about Parvati, let's dive into that just a little bit.
Let's make that smooth transition. Let's go.
So you guys are like friends turned to enemies, and it really started around that challenge with you guys both lying to each other, obviously, and that slowly trickled into like a whole snowball effect. And it kind of transitions to this episode where you guys have a conversation, but it doesn't really seem to go anywhere as far as we're shown. So,
did they have a conversation, Isaiah?
Yeah.
Would we say that was a conversation?
It felt like it. It felt like
was that a conversation, Phillip?
Phillip, you think this is a convo? What do you think?
I get better. Okay. I'm gonna start you on this. We filmed the show more than half a year ago, so like I'm watching it along with you and being like, "Oh, not my best work," but I'm gonna give you some context to Parvati and myself. When we met on day one, everyone was kind of like talking about like alliances in the game and stuff like that. And take note, if you go back and watch it again, Parvati and I have never agreed to be in an alliance in the game. The problem with that, like we just became friends and had mutual respect for one another. So I explain it to everyone as me, David, and Parvati kind of ran as three parallel lines. We respected each other and we were all going in the same direction, but we just tried not to cross until we absolutely had to. And so I think with that said, it would have been easier to handle that conversation with her that she had in the morning that you guys saw about Dr. Will and the bullying and all that stuff. If that was just an alliance move, it's easier to break an alliance in the game. But because we weren't really working together in the game, that felt like a friendship break instead, if that makes sense. The idea that she had never really used me for anything in the game. We respected each other just based on athleticism, strength. We had talked about, I don't know if you guys remember this, you probably do, but when she came out on Instagram, it was like a big deal. We had a big conversation about it. We talked about her partner and her relationship. We talked about like my history, all that stuff with cameras down. So when she brings it up, that's the first time it's ever brought up by someone else with cameras up. And I was like, whoa. And so for me, I will definitely say that I handled it not correctly, but you also have to understand that it's very jarring as a civilian. I think if I had done another show or if someone were to ever say something like that to me again in the future, I'd be good. But in no average American civilian life are you like talking with a friend and they're like, oh, we're just going to split those up. Just like your parents split up when you were 8. And you're like, wait, what? Like, it's so jarring that you're like, whoa, hold on a second. And so for me, I was like, why? And what she said is she immediately like followed it up. They like sliced it up, but they're like, and that's why you have to help take out Dr. Will. And for me, I was like, you're using this for the game. And like, we had that discussion, like no mics, no like cameras, chilling, and you're using it to take out him. And because I had seen them going like back and forth, I was like, oh, that's how you want to win this. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with whatever you're doing right now. Like I could win, I could lose, but I know that I don't want to play like that. And I think that is where that line gets blurred between good gamer and good person. I believe she is a good gamer and a good person. I just don't know if she knows how to make them both exist at the same time.
And it's very interesting because with our other children. Oh, go ahead, Cheyenne. I'm sorry about that. I know you got a lot.
I think there's definitely a difference of power that I don't agree with. Like most people don't like these kinds of mixed casts because similar to traders, all newbies, super fun. All celebrities, super fun. And housewives. But I will give it to Parvati. Like I admire the way she'll do anything to win. And I think like going back just a little bit to where they show the beginning of this story, like the episode being the story, her and David are looking across the island, their own perfect domain. Like, did y'all see them as the way they're portraying themselves?
Oh, we saw them like that. They were, yes, exactly what you're seeing is what we saw, but what you're not seeing is all of us like 10 feet away from them looking at them like this. Like literally standing like, what? Like, what do they think is going on? We're like, this is absurd. This is crazy. And it literally, it was so like, look at my kingdom of peasants. And we're like, we can hear you. Okay. Like it was so odd to be there and be like, but we're right here. We know what's happening. We can see you. And like, that's a weird thing that no one ever tells you about like reality TV in general. There's no indoor, there's no walls really. So when you see two people talking, cameras, mics around them and stuff, you immediately start thinking, what are they talking about? Is it about me? Do I need to walk over there? Imagine it like in the real world, you see people like talking and stuff all day and you never think about it like that. But in a situation like this, where everyone's outside and you're able to see the conversations and see things happening, you're like, I should be in there. Or you're like, or should I not be in there? It's like a whole big thing.
Why do you think Parvati and David were able to like insulate themselves so well? Like obviously Parvati is very smart and has been able to win immunity every single week. So obviously she can't get targeted. And I think by the end of the challenge, everyone realized, oh my God, they pulled one over our eyes again. They both got safety. And I think everyone realized we should be going after them instead of fighting each other. Like how do you think they're able to protect themselves so well?
Oh no, who said that in episode 1? Anyway, I think really it comes down to this game specifically. I know that, okay, this is going to be hot takes. People are going to be on me on Instagram. And for this, I'm sorry. It's arguably a harder game than Traitors or Survivor because to get someone out, we're looking at them knowing that they need to leave. You have to not only be able to clock the excursion, how it works. You don't know if it's teams, partners, with them, against them, or whatever else. You have to say, I want John out. Then you need to make sure you're on the top. John is also eligible to be eliminated. Then you have to decide who's going to go in and play that's going to take John out for sure. And then when that person goes in, they have a 50-50, like, are they going to win and take John out, or are they going to lose and you're going to lose and you're going to lose them as a number as well? There's so many different things that have to happen. If this were Survivor or Traitors or whatever else, you could have a conversation, get the numbers, and it's over. But for this, it doesn't really work like that. The same way that like Letty made the decision on who played the banker after the rings. I pulled the ring for her. I'm not in any way saying that like that should have been my win, but like there are so many things that you win without like you winning per se. And so I think there are things like that in the game that you really have to like take a step outside as a viewer and be like, okay, what would have had to happen to get them out immediately? As America's like, why aren't they on this? And I'm like, we're trying, but there's just no way to make, because we don't know how the excursions work. At least on Survivor, you know, there's like a reward challenge, immunity, like you're going to be in that big group. So like, you know that. We don't even have that. We don't know if it's going to be a group of 3 partners, if you're going to be working with your partner, against your partner. We don't know anything.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it's really random. And you're saying
So
that
random.
they're veterans, they can think really quickly on how to make the excursion work versus you guys are, it's like, oh, the challenge is over. I can't even get control for what the excursion was. Yeah.
So we have to do all of that and still try and navigate a social game. And I think that is where you saw in the excursion, Letty and I did not have the votes like to flip it and do what we wanted. Fun fact about the excursion. There was a round 1 where it was X marks the spot. I figured out where the X was and helped them dig up the tools that David was holding. And so when I was listening to a couple pods this morning that were like, why didn't they take out Phillip first over Letty? It's because I literally just had helped them win the one right before. I think for time, they sliced it, but that's why they figured it was easier to take Letty out. But that's kind of how that happened. Sorry, going like back. The conversation with Parvati was not my finest work. I'm going to say that now, but also I'll say we all have conversations that we look back on and go, I got the point across, but it wasn't like exactly as I wanted it to. I want you to know why I walked away. You know, when you feel that like a lump in the throat and you're getting vulnerable. And for me, I knew that I couldn't give that to her again because I already gave it to her once. So I didn't walk away out of anger. I want you to know that I walked away because I'm like, I'm not going to do this again. It's going to make me upset. And I was like, why would I want to be upset again?
This is a bit of a sorry. I just want to continue the thread, Cheyenne. This is a bit of a difficult question, but do you agree with her assessment, with her confessional afterwards, where like it was strategic that you did it right before a challenge to like set her off balance?
I wish I were that smart. To be honest, the thing is, we have a different excursion every day. We're on like day 9 or 10, and we're on episode 8, so that makes sense. And so, if you're going to speak to anyone, we have about 2 hours between waking up and the excursion in the morning. Then we only have about 45 minutes between the excursion and going to temple at night. So there's not a lot of time there. So like that was the only opportunity that we had to have any kind of real interaction, just because we're on such a tight schedule to get it all kind of done and stuff. So like, I do wish that I had that moment of like, I'm really going to get her good. Look at how mad and angry I get. But I was genuinely upset. And I think that that's kind of the hard part in like seeing America's reaction, because I think to myself, what makes a good reality TV contestant or player or personality? Vulnerability. They give you a story. They give you energy. There's some wit, sarcasm, speed, like to it all. And also they're willing to be honest. Every move is not a good move, but the ability to reflect and move on. And I think so far, I've given you all of those where you're like, okay, he's not the worst.
And literally, that is like, I'm hot take. I love the chaotic players. Okay, you need a mix of everything. You know what I'm saying? Before I move on, Cheyenne, did you have something you wanted to ask, or can I?
Yes. So Phil, I think that 100% we could see what you were going through, and anyone sympathetic saw it. Like this is getting to a place where I am no longer comfortable speaking. I don't want to speak to you. Totally get it. I just need to rewind a little bit before the Parvati convo, where Dixon looks at Letty. Like, I could have a little thing for her, and I could be a little nice to her if she gives me what I want. And I was like, Dixon ends his conversations with Letty like I end conversations awkwardly. Was he always awkward?
Yes, and that's why I love him. His level of game delusion is my favorite thing to watch. And I feel like as a friend, we always have that like friend that's like, I'm going to go up to that girl in that bar. And I was like, are you? And he's like, I'm going to do it. She loves me. And you're like, okay, bro, do it. And like, sometimes that works. And then you're like, how did that work? And like, and you're like, you know what? Okay. I think that what he has that I think a lot of people that apply for these shows don't have is he brings you protagonist energy. Whether you want him to be the main character or not, he wakes up and says, I'm the main character. And I love that for him because I'm the same way. And I'm like, no. The thing is, main characters only. If you're going to bring me Times New Roman size 12 energy, I don't need it.
I don't know if you watched Big Brother. I always said he reminded me of Ian Terry a little bit from when I was watching. I was like, yes. Delusional, but it's working, It's
working.
So there was another going into the challenge because you were talking about it a little bit. I wanted to get your mental, not only because we'll get to yours in a second, obviously. What did you think when Dixon and Letty, obviously Letty being voted out, like, all right, like the writing's on the wall, but Dixon going down with Letty, to me as a viewer, I was kind of surprised because I didn't really see the development of like their game relationship up until like the beginning of this episode, So for you, were you shocked by that?
I was not, because they had been hanging out. They made those like Taylor Swift friendship bracelets or some shit. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. But anyway, so like they were like hanging out on the swing and shit. And I was like, okay, cool. So what was really interesting to me about that is that how the challenge was phrased to us is that you always wanted to keep the strongest because we didn't know what would be happening afterwards. So the reason we kept CK is because she was convinced it was going to be like a Survivor-like puzzle. Here's what you also need to know as well. The team that designed the challenges this year was a slightly different team from season 1. So that's why we walk in never having any idea what's happening. We don't know if it's going to be like a slide puzzle or the numbers or whatever else. And CK, as much as she's like, don't let anyone know that I'm good at numbers. And then she's always like, I'm real good at numbers, y'all. And you're like, okay, great. So anyway, but it's one of those where like that's why we kept around, because we were assuming it was going to be some kind of like slide puzzle or something else like that. So like season 3, if you're listening, use one of those. And they kept me around for the head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And so like I do but like I think at that point I was already outvoted on Letty. If you rewind and watch, I don't raise my hand at all because they all voted for her and they already had the numbers. And so at that point I was like, there's nothing good that can come from me being like, not Letty. Like there just wasn't anything good at that point. So I was like, okay, I have lost this and we're good. But here's what I knew. I had spoken to Parvati that morning, and there was also another unaired conversation between that morning and the excursion where we were like talking on the way there, and it was like we were slowly returning back to like casual niceties. Hey, how are you? We were like speaking all afternoon before we went in there. So I was like, okay, she wouldn't dare apologize, talk to me that afternoon, and go into this excursion and screw me over again. I was like, impossible. So I knew that as soon as Letty left, I was like, okay, it's probably going to come down to David, Parvati, and me.
Thank you for bringing us back to before the challenge, Phillip, because we kind of went over it a little bit. You know, I feel like people have been attacking you online. I haven't seen it personally, but you're ready to defend yourself. But I think we should take it one beat at a time.
Okay.
Because back to like Parvati just being a bit sneaky. I love how you say, hey, you reach out, you know, you're like, hey, can I talk to you while you're explaining yourself? You know, straight face. She's just not really giving much. And when she does, like, when you stop talking, basically, she says, oh, why are you mad at me, please? You know, like, I've been wondering what you're mad about. Oh, what are you so upset about? And I think that what I think is that, like, after saying that, thinking that she's going to look bad for not considering your feelings, and then saying, him talking to me before the challenge, that's so manipulative, was such like kind of an insult to the audience. It was like, why are you lying to us?
I mean, I think that's what she believed at the time. I have to assume she no longer believes that, but I will say that that sentiment has been that has really been what all the hate has spawned from in the past 24 hours. I think that a lot of that has been the catalyst. And I think that like in her throwing that out into the universe, they were like, he is doing that. I was like, y'all, I teach apostrophes and commas. Like, I don't know. Like, I would love to say that I am that kind of mastermind that can do that and already be thinking 3 steps ahead of being like, yo, how can I throw her off in the iguana pit? But sure, I think it was just a matter of, at that point, I think we can all kind of right around the same age be like, I think millennials have a hard time finding their voice and speaking up when things are not working for them. And the fact that it took me 28 hours, 2 full days to be like, okay, I'm ready to speak to you now and explain what went wrong. I wish I could have been a better listener in that moment, but I feel like we've all been at that point where we have it in our head a certain way and you just want to get all that emotion out. And so in looking back at it now, I want to be like, she's apologizing, listen, but like me 7 months ago, I wasn't having it. I just wasn't having it. And for that, I'm sorry.
We don't need an apology, but
yeah, even though like every single episode is very clear that like at night we go to the temple and a day we have the excursion. When you told me that episode 9 is day 9, I was like, what? It's not like week 9, you know? Like I think because we're so used to like I guess these shows being longer formats. So like it's a really high pressure, high stressful, you're probably super sleep deprived. So like, yeah, normally in everyday life, you're like, that was weird. Okay, give me 2 hours and I can talk to them about it. But I feel like I can totally understand why in your situation it took you longer to process. And also, I think her confessional is just, I always view Parvati as a person who invented like the levels of thinking. I'm not sure if you've seen like you definitely know. Okay, you're a huge.
Yes.
Yeah, where she's always thinking, and I think that her confessional is a reflection of she's a gamer, and also she's assuming everyone else is a gamer.
That part.
And so like you're just coming to her as a person, even if it's on camera, but maybe in her head she's like, oh, this is on camera, so like maybe Phillip is coming to me as a player. But yeah, honestly, I feel like the People in Silent podcast, like we all love reality TV, so I think we have a decent amount of media literacy. But I would love for people on Twitter, hopefully they don't come for me, Twitter, Instagram, to have more media literacy. But it's it's fun. We watch these things because conflict is inherently interesting, but I think also giving everyone the grace in that conflict.
I think that the number one like criticism I read on like Reddit and Twitter, which by the way, horrendous. But anyway, they were like, he's still mad. He's been mad for 3 weeks. I was like, y'all, do you think that we do an excursion and then just hang out for a week and chill and wait for y'all to come back? Because we don't. That is literally the episode with the rings into Hazel's elimination, into Will's elimination was like 28 hours. And then you're seeing the morning after that. So like all of that happened in like a day and a half. And so, yes, I'm still mad, but it's been like 2 days. So like, let me be mad for like 2 days. And then like, I'm good, I'm fine. But it was not 3 weeks, even though I also understand for the viewer, it was 3 weeks. Okay. But like for us, it was not 3 weeks.
I have to say, I'm surprised to hear that was the majority opinion.
They were mad that I was mad. They were like, why is he still mad? I was like, oh, okay.
That's so interesting. Audience. Because my assumption watching the episode was that similar to Letty's episode with Parvati, it started awkward in the camp. And this episode, y'all had the awkward talk. And then later in the actual challenge, you worked together. So I assumed that behind the scenes, y'all had worked it out like Letty and Parv did. So I guess I'm surprised to hear otherwise. I didn't think that you were so obviously angry for the whole time. It's like they're starting to rebuild in this very episode.
I think one of the things that I wanted to do, and that brings us all the way back to Harriet Tubman. One of the things I wanted to do, I'm sorry, America. I like awoke.
Don't say sorry. That was fire, please.
That was a great cliffhanger.
That was amazing.
It hit just as it needed to in Black History Month. It hit. What I will say that, but here's the thing, and the reason that I was so upset about that moment, I also want to kind of bring that back as well. Myself, Seychelle, and CK had a conversation on day 3, and we were like, "Yo, listen, we need to look out for each other, not just like in like the game, but we were like on television. We need to remember that we are people of color being introduced to a new audience. So you need to reel it in and keep yourself under control." We discussed amongst the 3 of us how hard it is to be a person of color and have opinions and have views without seeing what we've seen in the past 24 hours. He's aggressive. He's yelling. And I was like, okay. So like, it's one of those where like, I think we've all kind of had to play the role of like where America wants us to be versus who we actually are. And I think that it's one of the things, and like, that's why I was so upset with CK, because you could see that she's poking and she's prodding. And what I'm trying to get to her with my eyes is we had a discussion on how we weren't going to let each other get out of pocket. It had nothing to do with like, we were going to bring each other to the end or whatever. We were like, no. We just discussed how hard it was to be a person of color on a platform like this and not have America picking apart your every move. So if we're ever coming out of pocket or flying off the handle or whatever else, reel it in. So the sheer fact that she was the one that pushed me over the edge, I was like, girl, we talked about this. And that's why I was so upset then. And that's also what I think is playing into the whole poverty thing. I think that you're seeing real feelings getting hurt. And I know that it's so easy for everyone at home to say, stay focused on the game and taking her out and all that other stuff. And I was like, okay, but like, it's my first time playing. If I were to go back to Traders or the Challenge or whatever else, you would see a slightly different me, an edgier me, sure. But like at my core, I'm still this. You can listen to me for a minute or two and be like, he reads middle schooler. He reads, hey, bud, you sound like you're having a rough day. Are you okay? No matter what.
So I think that one of the things that I did notice, which obviously it sucks to have to keep in mind, like respectable politics, and especially with the current administration and how they want to take away diversity and equity and inclusion, all three of them as much as possible. But one thing I've noticed throughout that episode in particular with CK, she was poking at you. And then Joe also poked at you. And I was like, oh, Joe,
listen,
our man.
He's here for the girls. Like Joe, as soon as he sees something going wrong, he's like, tell me about it. Like he's in it. I will say Joe is, if Jeff Probst didn't exist, Jeff Probst, like he's in it. He understands all the things. I don't want you to think that Joe shows up, reads cue cards, whatever else. He writes all the descriptions himself. He does it off book. If he hates the way he does it, he goes back and does it again. He's an executive on the show. He's there for every step. So I cannot take a single thing away from that man. As much as you think he's like, has his hands in it, he does.
Yeah, we were really surprised that I think two weeks ago, he did a really, really long tweet about CK cheating. And I was like, what? This is not written by a blogger. This is literally written by the host. Has any other host ever done this before? And it was like actually well done. And like, you can clearly tell he like cares about the show and he's having a lot of fun. Yeah.
He hits me up on Instagram. We probably speak a couple times a week.
Oh, that's so sweet of him. That's so great.
No, like he's in it. Yeah.
Wow. So what is your No, I'm just really curious. Like I feel like there's so much of the stuff that we don't see in front of the screen. I feel like for maybe one episode it was like, oh, Letty, CK, and Phillip were a thing. But what is your relationship with CK, and like how do you view like, I don't know, CK's journey throughout the episodes so far?
Well, I think that Letty is like an arrow just working in one direction. She wants to win no matter what. I'm kind of like a wavy line because I'm trying to maintain the relationships and do my best to navigate the game. I think CK is an asterisk if she was like smack in the middle, just like going in every direction and hoping that something sticks. And like my whole thing with that was, after you blew us up on Harriet Tubman night, after you blew us up, I was like, how are you going to go back to the other half? Because they don't trust you, because
I'm sorry,
you screwed them over and then you screwed us over. So like, I don't really know what your plan was after this, but she was very much like, this is what's going to happen on this one night. And that's it.
Is that what you refer to that episode as Harriet Tubman night?
Listen, I am, okay, you guys will appreciate this. I am in no way famous, but I am killing it on Black Twitter. And we know how important that is. That is the pinnacle of culture, wit, sarcasm. When you
That's how I
made
feel
it
on
on Black Twitter, you've made it.
Phillip, so with CK, I do want to talk about more with her because obviously, you know, the cheating, the Harriet Tubman night, the throwing the competition, she is almost like taking Will's old spot at this point where like she's just like solo at this point and hopping to whoever she were. So going into this one, obviously, you know, she throws Letty to the wolves, and then it's the second station or whatever where you guys have to pick suitcases, and it ends up being you and her who have to go take suitcases and go down. Joe obviously introduces like an option for safety, and it's you and Dixon and Letty and CK. Eventually, I was thinking like, oh, they might actually throw CK in there due to like all the chaos and everything. And I don't know if it was strategic or if it was spur of the moment, but you guys ended up going the other way on Dixon, which I was like, that was the right move, actually. You know, even though I think that you guys benefit off of either one of them going up in this situation, like I think that was the right move. What is there anything that we didn't see on camera that actually led to this? And you want to break it down?
So CK is a wild card. Surprise of the night. Anyway, CK is a wild card, and so it didn't make any sense for us to let her play because we weren't sure that she wouldn't take a shot at one of us. She has now proven in the foot race that she would have won, the hanging ring things that she would have been safe. Like, she will sabotage herself, and she doesn't really care about anyone else in the game. If that's how you want to play, that's fine. But at least we could try and take a hit at the family in knowing that we would take power away from CK and take something away, because we knew as it happened, David and Parvati were going to come down the hill holding hands, skipping, and they were going to be like, we did it, guys. Dixon, high five. And he was like, and you were like, oh, there we go. And like, that was the only power play that we had at that point. So yes, it was a strategic decision, but can we discuss the iguanas of it all? Because I'm gonna tell you something right now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you something right now. Here's what they said going into the iguana like hit. Number one, these are no Magic School Bus, Mrs. Frizzle iguanas. These things are this big, and I was like, I'm too black for this. I'm not doing this. They're all over. And as we go into like the pit, they were like, listen, we tested them for diseases, but if they scratch or bite you, we need to pull you out immediately. Now, tell me why I was still the only one. I literally was like, did y'all just hear what what? Apparently I was the only one, because that's why I look stupid, because they gave us that explanation. They're like, okay, ready, have fun. And we're like, what do you mean? What? I don't understand. And everyone, and CK is from North Carolina. She lives like around the water and stuff. So like they've all had experiences. Parvati has done Survivor 87 times. David lives in Australia. He punches like kangaroos in the mouth. Like, I get it. Cool, great. But at the same time, I'm like, I am from New Jersey. Get out of here. I don't do this. And they're like this big, and they're looking at you. And what you're not seeing is that when you're underneath them, they're over you. They were like, they might jump on you. They might swing the tail. I was like, oh no. And they're swimming in the water that you're walking through. So I was like, guys, this is hard. This is significantly harder than I wanted it to be, but you're not going to have me out there saying, no, I will not, and screw over everybody.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of using animals in challenges meant to scare people. Like, leave the reptiles in the sun.
Right.
Wasn't there like a snake challenge?
There was last year, yeah.
Okay, last year. Okay.
And Boston Rob got the snakes.
He didn't like that. Nope, did not like that at all.
Peacock likes using the animals for the challenges. This is very insane, because we just actually saw something like that on the Traders. Now that I think about it,
they did.
So what's going on with everything while you guys are standing there, obviously before the big decision, or even after the big decision I was just talking about, where you guys come to the realization that somehow you guys let Parvati and David be like the last two in this challenge. Like, what is the mindset? Where do you go from here at that point? Because obviously it's like, dang, like, how are these guys still getting in these positions?
If you actually watch it, the only one that has a realization is CK. So we get down there and CK is like, they pulled one over on us again. And me, Letty, and Dixon are like, yeah, we know. It's been happening the whole game. But the thing is, I think that because Lachelle didn't pick a side, she just was always in what you guys didn't see is whenever we raised our hands and like voted, she was always the last one. So what she would do is just seal the deal for whoever had names out there. And I guess even now, I'm not mad at her for doing that because I'm like, I guess that's a smart move because I'm still not mad at her that she voted me out. But the only reason she voted me out is because everyone else did. So I was like, I guess that's smartest for you. So she always waited to be the last one. And then I knew it. I clocked it when they were like hanging around. I was like, something with upper body and being able to hold it. And Lachelle was like, I could do it. And I was like, girl, I love you, but what? I love you with my whole heart. She was literally like a mother to me on that island. If anyone got screwed with the edit, it's her. I think that she held the island together. She was everybody's black mama, cousin, auntie, all at the same time. Whenever you needed her to be, that's what she did. And I think that the one-on-one conversations and the social game that she had was why in the after show, Boston Rob was like, I thought you were going to win. There was so much hype on the internet for her being like, she's going to win because like she played a great social game. It's just that I don't think she ever really like drew a line in the sand and said, this is who I'm going to work with.
Yeah, there's some support for Lachelle on this very podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I've been saying this whole time, there's not much going on in the edit. This episode where she said, I'm a social worker. I tell people what they need to hear. I was like, oh, she's going home.
Oh, no.
Like, they gave us nothing on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like the edit always loves named alliances, right? The family. And I think with Lachelle, I definitely think they try to portray her as like a very smart person. Like if she was definitely the person consistently saying, I don't trust Parvati. And I always felt like and she was giving like advice to MG and Storm during their blossoming showmance or whatever. Wait, I am losing my train of thought.
But while you're on that thought,
she wasn't because she had what? Wait, what did you say?
Sorry, continue.
No, I was just saying that because like I feel like you can see glimpses of her social game, but because I guess she wasn't on a side or in a named alliance, like I couldn't quite figure out where she fit. Like I feel like there were two sides, and then it was like her. Not in the middle, but just like floating around. But I mean, I feel like she's like probably anti-family. But it was just hard to tell because we didn't always see the strategic relationship.
If it helps, we didn't know either. But like that for us was we had absolutely no idea. And because she never really picked a side, I think she left the game how she wanted to. Everyone adored, loved, and respected her, and that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if she didn't have to choose between Dixon and herself, she probably would not have been chosen.
Right.
In any other case. If it was Dixon or David.
Right, yeah.
We do actually see the confessional of her saying, my objective is to fill the pot. So, I mean, you are right there. Something I also wanted to ask in relation to Parvati and David, after you guys saw Lachelle come down. We obviously see you guys talk about knowing Parvati, some knew Will. Other than Will, who had a like idea that like David won something. Did anybody know that David played Australian Survivor? Did anyone know he actually like won a game?
No. And I can only explain that like that's another one that I read a lot of. That they're like, how did you not know he played Australian Survivor? And then
why would we know that?
Essay. I'm like, how did you know? And they're like, the commercial for Deal or No Deal Island that said he did. I'm like, yeah, but we didn't get that. We didn't get that though. So like, that's not fair. That's not fair because you got that and we got nothing. And so the thing about it for me is I knew something was up with him because he was making stupid mistakes on purpose. And I knew something was up because he was too comfortable in front of the camera, and in knowing that they had just brought on Dr. Will, who won Big Brother, Parvati, who won Survivor. They're not going to bring on like David, who was 8th on Love Island. I was like, that's not a thing. Like, so I was like, he had to have won something. So that conversation was going around, but a big relationship that you didn't get to see was me and him when like I would work out on my own every morning for like a solid half hour, 45, and he would work out with me. We talk about like his kids that are right around middle school age. And so they were having some academic issues and stuff in school. And I was talking to him about that. So like me and him are close. It doesn't actually show that on the show, but like me and him are close. And so that's why like I knew something was up, but I didn't know enough to really like poke and prod at him. But like I definitely knew that I was like, something seems amiss because you have an accent and you look like that. So there's that.
I think there's actually time because you were so close with Parvati that I thought you were actually playing the middle. That you're okay, so you totally were.
Oh yeah.
But then after I guess the comment that Parvati made, and then I guess the deal with MG, like it put you more on the side that wasn't the family.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
So,
MG and Storm. Like, okay, let's do it. Yep. Okay, I got it.
Oh, well, I was going to say, like, considering the episode, we saw, like, Dixon kind of pull David's heartstrings with, you're kind of like the dad I wish I had had. And I think episode 1 or 2, Dixon talks about how his dad thought that he wouldn't have the personality for reality TV. And so I guess I was wondering, like, seeing those scenes on TV versus, like, living with him on the island, was that something that, like, you knew? Or is it something that's like kind of surprising?
I will say that what Dixon is really good at is that like very much like in getting to watch myself in this experience, when he's vulnerable, he's really vulnerable. And he is willing to tell you anything. If you walked up to him on the street and you were like, I love the show, but like, can you just like tell me a little bit more about your like parents and family or whatever else? He'll go like immediately. And like, that's what I love, because I think that's what makes good reality show personalities. The idea that like he comes in with a story and he's willing to share that story, and someone like me eats that up because I'm like, oh, so you clung to Parvati, and I'm like psychologist hat on. I'm like, okay, so wait, you've always had trust issues with parental figures, mother and father. So you came to the island and you found a new mother and father, and that's why you won't let go of them, even though you know that they're not good for you. I'm like, got it, cool. Like that's how I thought of just kind of like figuring out who everyone was and then how that was going to influence them in the game.
I think another thing, or I was going to talk about Dixon some more. Okay. Well, wait, no, now I forgot. I got distracted. But we were talking about MG
real
and Storm.
Quick, before you continue, is there a cutoff or can we keep going? Philip, you still good?
All right.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, go ahead, Cheyenne.
I ain't got no plans. Come on.
I was like, but I have so many questions. Yeah, okay. So with Dixon, was it not weird for David to lie to Dr. Will about Dixon, or was everyone okay with him not keeping his word because it was Dr. Will?
So both Parvati and David had discussed when to cut him loose. It had happened. I had been there more than once. And the thing is that you're not seeing in the conversation, which I think this also kind of fueled some of the anger. When Parvati said, Dr. Will is the kind of guy that would have bullied you in middle school. After like that happened and you like immediately see me have the reaction. At the end, I go, so if Dr. Will's safe, what do you want to do then? And she's like, get rid of Dixon, I guess. They cut that out. And so for me, here's how I clock it. If you're willing to use that on me right now, and you're willing to cut loose your son, who you already know has trust issues with his mother and father, I was like, whoa, stop. That, I was like, wait, this is not good. And I was like, I don't know how to move forward like this because when we're not in the game, everything is like so good. And I'm not going to be someone that's going to say, Parvati hasn't changed since becoming a mother, doing the divorce and all that stuff. She is a great person outside of the parameters of the game. And that was what was hard for me, because I was like, do I want to work with you in the game? And at that point, we hadn't really been working together. We had 2 excursions because we just were like, you're strong, I'm strong. And that was it. But like, we hadn't really had a long-term plan per se.
I mean, I definitely think that Parvati is a gamer, capital G.
Yes.
And I would say she did have a plan from the beginning. It's kind of weird to say it, but there was an episode where she was like, I love Phillip, but he's not a part of the family.
Yeah.
And it was very much giving like Charlie Brown when all the white people are on the Thanksgiving table. And then there's the Franklin on the side.
Not Franklin. I talk about him all the time. Not Franklin.
It was just like it was a little uncomfortable for me personally, that it seemed like y'all were friends, but she was like, that's my little guy on the side.
I think with her, you have to know that you are not a priority unless you're her number one. I think she's made a career of being with one person and taking one person to the end. And as soon as it hit excursion number 2, I was like, listen, I'm important to her. She likes me as a person. We'll go have a soup, salad, lunch after this, but I'm not her number one. I know that.
Okay. So obviously there's some conversations going into the Banker Simple. Did you know that Dixon was the person that Dixon was the person that wasn't going to be going up, and it was going to be Lachelle? Were there any attempts on trying to get Lachelle not to be put up? Where are the conversations like here?
This was arguably the hardest one of, I think, the entire season, because Parvati had gone back and forth so many times. And I think she walked in that night not even knowing what was going to happen for sure. Because if you can clock it and you go back, there's like whispers, and then she's like looking over. She's like, should I? Like she's still actively figuring it out, because the idea was either Dixon can play, but there's a 50-50 he goes home. But she knew that if Lachelle played, there was a big chance Dixon was going to go home, because he made like mistake number 1, which you don't make in like Survivor. Instead of making his plea about why he should not play, he made his plea about why Lachelle should play, if that makes sense. So because he didn't really make it about him, he made it about her. I think it got back to her, and she was like, I'll take you out. And that was it. And so like, I think no matter what, for her, it was going to be a hard decision either way.
Interesting. Okay. And
at this point, sorry, I guess going back to CK, like thinking that she's a wild card, was there a point where you realized like CK would take out Dixon?
Her and Dixon did not get along. I wish they showed the entire argument and the fight by the rings, because that's why they went for one another. They did not get along at all. It was not good. And I think also Parvati and her presence and Dr. Will kind of got into her head, and she would walk in some mornings and be like, I know that Dixon is the spelling bee champion from 2009. I'm like, no, girl, get it together. I don't think he's anyone. And she's like, he's definitely an Olympian soccer player, right? I'm like, no, look at like it just, she tried to like really figure him out, and he wanted nothing to do with her. And so I think like it just wasn't happening for a while there. And although she talked about eliminating him more than once, with her, you know this as well as anyone else, even as a viewer, you're like, I don't know what she's going to do next. I have no idea.
You're right. You're right.
Why can't the Asians work together? Okay, sorry.
No, that was thrown out. I want to say like maybe this week. I don't think they're going to air it, but that was thrown out. And I think my personal opinion is that Dixon was slightly offended by that and taken aback by that, only because if you don't treat someone well for 9 days. And then you're like,
Yeah.
maybe we should work together now because he's like, whoa. Like, I just think that's just like, he's a very black and white, for lack of a better term, cut and dry person. And he was not going to let that fly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
I could definitely see that.
You're saying CK pitched that to Dixon?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
Can you imagine? Like, you have every alliance you could ever want. No one's really going after you. But the one person that's been like, I don't like Dixon, is like, hey, Asian fellow. Like, did they talk about it at all beforehand?
No. And like, he did not have a great reaction for that. Not great. Not great.
Oh my goodness, CK is so cracked.
CK was my winner pick. That's unfortunate.
When was she?
Hey, look, it's not over.
Pick?
From maybe day 2. I really liked her. I mean, I still kind of like her as a player.
No, she's
very
self-interested.
Okay, I do want to put this into perspective in my like psychologist hat, because I was like, what happened here? And I was like, okay, wait. She's a very small person. She's like 5 foot something, but like on the smaller end. She's definitely the smallest person still in the game. She's a small person. She's a woman of color, and she works in finance. And I was like, I understand why you feel naturally inclined to be the finance bro and the loudest one in the room, because America has said that you don't have a voice and it doesn't like count as much. So I was like, I understand it, but also because I understand it, I need you to be like, can you stand down for like a second? And just like, I know that that's how you have to approach it with clients or in the real world or whatever else, but there's like, what, 6 of us here? Like, we don't need it anymore.
Honestly, that's probably a better argument for why Dixon should go to the end with her. It'd be like, hey, physically, we would be advantaged together with Lachelle. I mean, it's so weird to me that like Dixon isn't trying to work with smaller people.
He had a final 2 deal with all 14 of us, but I want to also say 18 because it probably included the cameraman, microphone man, a sloth he met that morning. So when Dr. Will says, you're a weasel, I don't trust you, it's because here's what they cut. At Temple the night before, he was like, who has a final 2 with Dixon? Every hand goes up. He's like, that's why. And we were like, okay. So the thing with, it's just because he's such a Survivor Big Brother player that he from day one was like, you know what no one's ever going to expect? And Dr. Will said, you know what no one's ever going to expect? And we all went, you and I final 2. And he's like, that's why I don't trust you, Dixon. That's it. And so like, I applaud his gameplay, but he literally made a final 2 with all of us. And that's why I think he was more specific towards the end, because I'm pretty sure he had one with like a koala, a sloth that was on the tree. He had one with the whole ocean like that. I was like, okay, like it doesn't mean anything anymore. All right, that's fine.
I can't believe they cut that.
The Twitter clip.
Hilarious.
It's Twitter clip for this podcast. That's going on Twitter. All right.
I love Dixon. He's such an icon.
He is though. No, but he is.
So let's talk about Banker's Temple a little bit. So you guys are going in there, as you said earlier. Parvati seemed to make up her mind last second, and you guys find out Lachelle's going up. Did we miss anything from that? Lachelle looked very confused, but like not surprised at the same time.
It's exactly what you saw. She had told us that morning. Lachelle, if you've ever met a beautiful, fabulous Black woman anywhere, Lachelle is a very spiritual woman. And she woke up that morning and was like, it's not my day to play. And we were like, what's happening right now? She was like, nope, this isn't it. This isn't it. This isn't it. And we were like, what is going on? But like, she knew if she went into play, she was going to go home that night. I don't know how or why, but something spoke to her. And she woke up that morning and I want to say she says it in the conversation with Parvati that she was like, nope, I have played more than one. I like have felt good every time, but she's like, this is not it.
How many people had won previously?
At this point, I want to say we're at like 3 good deals, like 3 or 4 in a row. So we were like, this one is not gonna.
Right. Yeah. Just like statistically.
Right.
Given that Joe's super involved, are y'all able to talk to Ben and Kamari at all?
No,
Are
because
they
we
single?
try to keep them very separate. But like the thing with us is, it is like seeing your fashionable, attractive cousin at the holidays. So they walk out, right? And you're like, whoa, what's up, Ben? And he's like, hey. And you're like, Kamari, that dress is beautiful. And she's like, thank you so much. But like, that's it. And then you never speak again. And that's it. And you're like, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. And that's it. So like, you have no real interaction. You just see them at like holidays. You're like, cool, great.
So are they single?
I do not know.
Okay.
I don't know, but I do know if you hit them up on Insta, they probably answer. So like I say, shoot your shot. Shoot that shot.
I seen them on someone else's podcast. They seem to be out here, so talk to them.
I mean, hey, good information doesn't come free. I understand. Sorry, like the Baker's Temple is like the least favorite part for me because I'm like fractions.
And so we're seeing like I did have this question seeing all the Baker's Temple. This is my first season of Deal or No Deal Island, by the way, so I'm still a lot new to this. Do the side conversations that happen during do you want to take the deal or not, like deal or no deal, and you always see like some people, whether they're working with you or not, spout a lot of stuff. Does it really have a true impact, in your opinion, on someone's decision or not? Because there's obviously the personal gain from everyone just wanting to get money, and then there's the gain of the strategy portion of it, where people are like, oh, we need to have like our allies here, or we need to get this person out. Has there ever been like a deciding factor from this season, at least, that you've seen up to now, that's actually played a part in someone's decision?
I have not, but I feel like as a viewer, I watched season 1, and I feel like you're even seeing it in our season right now. Isn't the energy kind of weird during the game? Because they're trying to get Price is Right energy, but also drama of Survivor at the end. And so it's hard to like, you want to like scream and cheer and clap, but you're also like, one of my friends is going home. So like, you don't want to clap too hard. Like, and so it's like a really weird energy where we're all just kind of in the middle. So we're like happy about it, but also not. And like, we don't really know how it's going to happen. So like, no one really wins per se. And that's why the energy always feels like a little weird. In between all of them, when you see someone chime in and make a suggestion or whatever else, more than likely Joe has asked all of us, but they'll only use like the 1 or 2 of us that feel really passionate about whatever it is. I am awful at like fractions and odds and statistics, so please take note. They've never asked me, but they do be asking people that know the numbers. They're like, Phillip, would you take this deal? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, you don't know. Like, I have no idea. I'm sorry. I was absolutely awful at math and stuff. So the graphics that you guys are seeing with the offer, we don't see those. And so they just like throw out an offer and I'm like, carry the 3. And I'm like, what's the square root of 9? And they're like, why? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, it's bad. It's bad. I don't know anything about it.
Remember. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you like so you get the offer, and then you're like, okay, so that's like how I did it. I'm like, that's like 3 on top and 2 on the bottom, which if you don't do it that way, you're lying. But anyway, because all of us are like, wait, is that going to be a good deal or a bad deal? Like how many are on top of the offer? How many are like underneath, right? So it's that, but like, we don't see the graphic that you guys do.
And real quick, how long do the Baker's Temples usually last, out of curiosity?
A couple hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Why?
Because they have to do the mathematical calculations. Here's what a lot of people like don't believe, and I will tell you this right now. Because it's an actual game show, it's under like, I don't know if I want to say like government, but like it is. And so no one knows the values in the case. Ben, Kamari, Joe, nothing. So as soon as you're like, they wanted that person to stay or make a good deal or whatever else, we literally have someone from like the gaming commission, he's the only one that knows all the numbers. So when let's say they have 3 cases left and he's on the phone, they're mathematically figuring out what could be left and offering it, so that like the only one that knows is that one man that's allowed to know. That's it.
Wait, that's so helpful, because I feel like there's so many Reddit comments that were like, in the preseason interview, they must have asked, how many children do you have? When are your parents' birthday? All these things. And then they make sure to like either put the numbers in those cases and to try to trip you up. But I had no idea that like no one knew except for the banking commission or whatever. But so you're saying that like you guys are literally waiting for the banker to actually calculate.
Yes.
Wow.
Because it is a reality show, but it's also still falls under a game show. And I think as soon as you can win a cash prize, it has to be like under the commission, the rules, the laws, all that other stuff.
Oh.
The true banker is the government.
The government.
The U.S. government or the government of the island of the secret location that we don't know about?
I asked. The U.S.
Okay.
I asked.
Okay.
Uncle Sam. There you go.
A little throwback to season 1. Something that season 2 does not have is giving people prizes to just walk away.
Yeah, no.
Like, was that a surprise to you, or do you think it changed with the company?
We were expecting a personal offer almost every night, and I think that was one where if they really wanted to keep someone around or get rid of someone, they would have. But I think just the actual group of people that they got to do the show, and I do not say this lightly, are some of the most interesting, amazing people I've ever met in my entire life. Even if you go back to like Luke and Sydney, the stories that brought them to the island. Luke had been a few weeks out of his divorce. He came to the island to just kind of like start all over again. Sydney, when she moved out to LA, she lived in her car for a few months because she couldn't find anything. And instead of going home to admit that she like had come up short, she lived in her car because of her pride and her want and need to do well. So that's what motivated her to come to the show. Like, so when you really understand why people are there, it almost seems kind of trivial to be like, I'll give you 50 grand to walk away. They're like, no, this was hard, like really, really hard. So I don't know if anyone would have accepted it, but I do know that like we were there pretty much every night so far being like, this is going to be it. And it wasn't it.
That's crazy.
I wanted to ask, very crazy. And I wanted to ask, so I guess the big reveal within this challenge is unfortunately the thing that eliminates the show, which is there's 3 cases left. 2 of them have big numbers. 1 of them have a small one. And then I correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first offer that is over $1 million. It seems, since David's was literally like $1 off. Go figure. I, as a viewer, was just like, she can't take that. Like even though it's her objective was we need to fill the pot, and this would technically be the biggest pot fill. It's like you can't take it because it's like your shot statistically it's not going to work out. You know what I'm saying? Did anyone else tell this to her, or like did she just say like, nah, I feel good with this, like this is where I'm going to take the rest?
I think that at the end of the day, it's weird because in looking back at it now, I feel like she woke up that morning and knew that it was her day. Like just how like the energy, how she was moving around that day. She's like, if I play, this is my day. And I think that in knowing her at all, if she were to leave a legacy on this game, it would be making sure that there would be a bigger prize for one of us. And I say that now. And if you, again, walk up to her on the street, the energy is just as friendly and kind and warm. I will miss her so much. I think she taught me so much about being spiritual, showing up for myself, being unapologetically Black, because in my field of work, whether it's education or fitness or whatever else, the reason I do what I do is because I didn't have any person of color to look up to. So I grew up overweight, out of shape. I trained myself. And I said, because I didn't have anyone Black in fitness to look up to, I had to grow up and become what I didn't have. And she was like, you should tell that story to everyone. And I was like, how come? And she was like, because it means something. And I was like, oh. And so like, that is the kind of person she is. So if she had to leave the game, I'm so glad and proud that this is how she left the game.
Okay. Go, Cheyenne, you're good.
Sorry, yes, there's something that I noticed, and it's like hearing more from this episode or this podcast. Obviously, I've learned a lot more about you, and I can understand where it's coming from. But watching it back, do you notice that you're always smiling when you're mad?
Yes. I think that, again, going back to that conversation with Seychelle and CK.
Yeah.
I think that you have to, as a person of color, almost use it as a protective mechanism, because the moment you frown, and it happened to me, everyone's like, look, that's the real him. I was like, okay, guess I'm not allowed to be angry or mad ever. And so like, you have to always be like on, because everyone is looking for a reason to villainize you or make your teachers say, look, he's evil. You could see it right there. And you're like, am I though? Like, am I? I still have not done anything evil. Don't get me wrong. I've had some slip ups along the way. Cool, great. But I don't know if I could say anything where you'd be like, he's the villain. I'm like, I don't know if I am, but okay. I think that for me, in working in front of a classroom or working in front of a group of clients, you don't have the option to show it on your face when you're not having a good day. I think that like that, you lose money, people stop listening to you. And so because your presence is what you do, you just learn to show up optimistically, authentically, and positively, however you can.
All right.
Wow. It was wild, not gonna lie. You were like, because the Harriet Tubman episode, you were looking at CK and you were like, no one's smiling. You're the only one smiling while smiling. And I was like, bless your soul. I know what you're trying so hard to not look like that person, but it also becomes like almost a hindrance, like the white gaze of like not being able to live in the moment.
Yeah, I think that is a big thing that in reality TV people don't talk about enough. I think that the people that we idolize and villainize, sometimes we have to take a step outside of it and ask ourselves, how come? And it really does show its face on something like Traitors, where you will notice it, episode like 1 and 2, you're like, something about Sierra, I don't trust her. And we're all like, this is the only show where that would fly, but okay. Like, it's just, there are small things that you're like, don't love that. Okay.
I was gonna say, I'm watching Traitors season 2 at the recommendation of Isaiah and Cheyenne, and like what you're reminding me is of when, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Traitors season 2, of when Peppermint got banished, and Deontay was like so heartbroken about it, that like about just like what transpired. And so Phillip, thank you for sharing that perspective. Obviously we would love to see something like that in a confessional right now, and that's not you.
I brought it up more than once. Don't think I didn't. I am not quiet about anything, but I think I also have my first master's degree in public relations, and I'm like, I understand why instead of half the country trying to burn NBC down, it's easier to just not air that. But trust me, it was discussed ad nauseum. But I think just in the lighthearted nature of the show and our demographic, I think it's always hard and difficult for me to swallow when, like, when someone wants to say something and they're like, like Phillip, he's like, and like, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, if you like, you would never whisper like Jewish or Muslim or whatever else, but like it subconsciously tells people like me that like it's not okay, and you have to, and I'm like, it's not a secret, guys. I have eyes, like it's okay, but like it's one of those things where you never want to like bring it up because it makes people uncomfortable. But I do want to also throw into the universe that like it's easy for you to turn your TV off. It's easy for you to say, oh, not my friends, not my family, or whatever else. But like, we don't get that option. We don't get to turn it on or off. We just get to navigate the world in knowing that some people want us to do well, some people are indifferent, and some people don't. And like, that's just a reality that I'm slowly learning through this reality.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
All right, guys. Well, listen.
I'm so sorry.
Phil,
No, I mean,
Phil,
what
I'm
else
you
are we
know,
going to talk about?
I was just about to say, like silent, anything but silent. We talk about all this stuff at nauseam. Right. So like, you're perfectly fine.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Do not worry about that.
Absolutely. And like, we've talked about how reality TV is kind of like on the better side of representation, especially CBS and MTV. Mm-hmm. But that's not without its faults, especially behind the scenes. The camera people, it's like, how comfortable can you be if no one behind the scenes looks like you? Yeah. So 100%, like we acknowledge how hard it is on a 360 level.
All right. So we have discussed the episode. Before we close out or anything, Cheyenne or Julia, do we have any last questions for Phillip that you guys want to ask?
I will say that as great as she sounded, Lachelle was the ultimate letdown. Gave nothing, brought nothing, served nothing, won nothing. Like, it was not giving, I fear. And, you know, her leaving, I probably won't remember next week.
That's fair. I think it was one of those things where what she invoked inside of all of us was a sense of humanity and empathy. And I think kind of like that was her gift to the game. The game gave her the experience, and she gave to the game, affecting all of us. She has an amazing relationship with every single one of us to this day. And so I think that like at the end of the day, people are here for different reasons, and it just kind of works out like that. And I don't know if she was necessarily here for the viewer, but I am so blessed and grateful that I got to even interact with someone like her in this experience.
Shout out to Lachelle. Okay. Julia, you have anything?
No, I do not. I feel like I've peppered Phillip with a lot of questions. So
no, I love answering anything, and like that's my whole thing. That I'm like, if you want to talk about something, I can talk about it with you. But if you're like, I hate him, he's the worst, I'm like, I can't really do much with that. But if you want to like discuss something, I'm good. I got you, easy.
Yeah, and I hope people. I'm really excited for people to listen to this episode of Silent Podcast. Like, I just feel like we just got a much deeper understanding of who you are and why you're on the show and what you care about.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm afraid of the internet. That's crazy.
I mean, yeah,
I'm not on the internet. I'm not on, like, I literally don't have Twitter or Instagram. So like, if people are saying, you know, shit about the host of this, ignorance is bliss. But yeah, I know you're on the internet, Cheyenne. So
not on those internets. I'm not like I'm sorry. I know we're trying to wrap it up, but like I see the anti-hate more than the hate. Like I see people defending Danielle more than I see people talking about Danielle. Like I see the defense. My timeline is the defense. So I don't see
my algorithm is clean.
Okay,
but
can you defend Danielle in that Easter Sunday JCPenney hat? Can you defend it, Cheyenne? Tell me you can.
I'm pro Carolyn, and I loved all of her looks. Danielle's disappointed me look after look after.
Team Danielle. We will never agree on that.
But great player. Maybe bad actor.
It's the hat for me. I can't do it.
The elderly funeral hats.
Okay. All right, listen, we're going into traders territory, so I think we're good. So, real quick, we're going to start closing. So, Philip, don't leave until I tell you to leave. I got to make sure it all fixes. But I do want to say thank you so much for coming on. This started out with you walking into the stream, seeing us talking about the way you run, and now you're here, and you super appreciative of you just setting this all up. This was such an awesome interview. Philip, where can people find you? And if you want to be found, first of all, and yeah, all that plug stuff. You can plug whatever you want.
On TikTok and Instagram, I am P Solomon 12, all O's, SOLOMON, the number 12. And if you love me, you want to talk and engage, those are my handles. If you don't love me, you can find me at Dixon Wong. At Dixon Wong, you could just hit me up.
Girl, do you do?
I'm sorry, Dixon. I'm sorry.
Do you do virtual fitness? Like, how would anyone? Yeah,
yes, if they want to hit me up for personal training, I am really good at you being like, I have this at my house. This is what I can work with. Or I'm going to the gym every day. Can you just like write something up for me? And I switch it up week by week. So whatever you need, hit me up on Instagram. I got you.
Nice.
There you go. All right. Thank you so much, Philip. Julia, you don't have social media. What you got going on?
I don't have social media. I've talked about it 2 times already, but Mark and I are definitely doing, and Eden Porter from Australian Survivor, definitely doing an Oscars prediction podcast this Saturday. I'm 7 out of 10 of the Best Picture nominees. I still have Conclave, Emilia Perez, and Wicked left. But I have 3 more days, and I'm super excited to do the Oscars prediction podcast on Silent Podcast. So you can find us on Saturday. We still haven't decided a time, but when we do, we will announce it on social media.
All right. Thank you, Julia. Cheyenne, how about you?
Awesome. This has been so exciting. Philip, you've been such like a bright light on this season. It's like from day one, just a major highlight of the season. I really look forward to like seeing you navigate the scene and like what you're going to do, especially on those challenges. For anyone who's interested in my social media, Cheyenne New, as in I know things, I'm know-it-all, Instagram, YouTube. Follow me on Instagram if you're in the New York area and you want to see some stand-up comedy, because I'm out here and I'm so funny.
All right, there you go. And then lastly, you can follow me at 8Ball Bangers on everything. You can find us here every week on Silent Podcast talking about Deal or No Deal Island to watch Philip and the rest of the cast every Wednesday usually. This is a non-live one, and Survivor's on now, so a little conflict with the schedule, but we will adjust as accordingly. And also you can find me with Katie for Sign the Traders, talking about the traders every single week on Friday, like usual at 7:30. And if you want to follow everything else that we're doing on Silent Podcast, you can follow us at _podcast on Twitter and Instagram, Silent Podcast on TikTok, Twitch, Blue Sky, and all that fun stuff. And if you are watching this, like, comment, and subscribe. Everything helps for the algorithm. And if you're listening on our audio platforms, like and give us 5 stars, but 5 stars only. If you don't like it, don't rate it at all. Just wait till you hear something you do like. Now, with that being said, this is us talking about Dondi. Oh my God, I just froze up. But this is our Dondi podcast for this week. We will see you guys next week and have a good one. Bye.